Hey Gundam Maniacs, welcome to another episode of Gundam Explained. In this episode, I'm actually going to look at the GP0 series of Gundam. I actually have them in Robot Spirits form, ver-anime, so they're supposed to be very accurate. So consider this video not only a look at the GP0 line, but also like a slight review of the Robot Spirits versions. Now, you can get a model kit and build it and make it as accurate as possible, but the Robot Spirits line of figures are awesome, very accurate, and they can give you a good idea of the proportions and the scale of certain mobile suits in the ver-anime line. But before we get started, if you haven't, please hit the subscribe button, like this video if you think it's cool as you go, and check the links in the description for the Discord and the Patreon, where we'll have an exclusive podcast coming up pretty soon, as well as a monthly movie night for supporters. But let's get started. All right, let's start with the GP01. So this is Koaraki's, well, is it really his? I guess he just got a hold of it in order to try to stop the GP02 when it was captured. You know, just some cool looks about this. This just looks like an excellent evolution of the RX-78-2. You know, we have the V-fin, and it is white, and it also has this extra antenna, which is very cool. Yeah, and just kind of getting a look at the head there. Just, you know, again, typical evolution of the RX-78-2 looks great. As is with the rest of the unit, if you look at it, like the way they're utilizing the blue and the red, having that crest there that we see that's normally down at the crotch piece. I mean, that just looks really good. It's also interesting seeing how the skirt armor works, because it's not as big as we typically see with Gundam or mobile suits in general. As we work down, see some other details. You know, really looking at this GP01, it seems like it is just if they made an RX-78-2 in modern times, because this is really just modernizing that basic look of the RX-78-2, which we all like, and we always see iterations of it anyway. This is just a solid design, and I don't know if anyone would complain about the look of the GP01 or the GP0 series in general. With the Robot Spirits, it just comes with, you know, what you typically see, the hands, all the different weapons. It has connector parts for the guns. I love it when beam sabers are on the backpack at the top there. That always looks cool. Yeah, so let's keep this out as we grab the next iteration. And that was the GP01FB. And this was made specifically for that more thrust, so that it could do more space, even aerial combat. And we can see with the thrusters back here. So we take a look at the GP01, the GP01FB. So it's, again, it's the same model, just upgraded for more advanced flight, more advanced high mobility. So a lot of it, you know, there's some things that are similar, but really it is a different design. So let's look at the head and chest. So between the two, the head is nearly identical. That's kind of in the way, but yeah, if we look at that, the heads are nearly identical. We move to the chest, that's where it changes a little bit. There's a little bit less white on the FB, more red in that cockpit area, whereas this didn't have it. That's pretty interesting. As we go down, this is where the armor, the skirt armor, actually gets a little bigger. And then obviously the feet are bigger, maybe more propellant or thrust fuel. Yeah, on the back here. Oops. Yeah, on the back of the legs here where it has the thrusters underneath. This one just has smaller ones. So a difference there. So you can really see the difference. Oh, you know what? Even looking at the shoulder armor here, if you check that shoulder armor, we see that a lot more with the post, I guess, 83 mobile suit design. Maybe to hold more thrusters, have more thrust ability, it looks like. Yeah, seeing all the little thrusts here. So yeah, this gives the thing a lot more mobility. Yeah, it's a pretty cool look. I love how it's just kind of the upgraded look of the GP01 just for space flight. And I like they kind of do that even with G-Savior. There's different versions, one for like ground, one for space. I kind of like that idea with mobile suits in general, to make it where maybe parts could be attached or added on. to give it more flight. Sometimes mobile suits use like a jabber or something, a base jabber to fly around, but yeah, very cool anyway. And the articulation on the thrusters itself is pretty good. We can even see the thrusters within the thrusters. So yeah, we can see where all that high mobility is. Now, not that it's in order of production, but after the GP01 is the GP02, even though we had the FB in between. Now, the GP02 is really cool because this is a nuclear weapon, pretty much. So between the coolant that's in the shield, it also has a part of the nuclear launcher also on the back here that you can set up for this thing. You know, one thing to keep in mind, it gets stolen by Zeon early on in the show that this is in. And by looking at it too, I think it has more of a menacing look. I mean, look at that head. I think it kind of fits with it being captured by Zeon and not really used by the Federation. And this is another one where we kind of see with the robot spirits how the elbows have an extra joint. We see this a lot more now, and this kind of helps with holding weapons. You know, what's cool about this is it's chonky, it's heavy. So it has kind of a body built for that high mobility, but I still don't think it would be any more high mobility than a GP01 FB. I would assume all these thrusters are really to make up for the fact that this thing is gigantic and has so much weight that it has to use. But really, the primary use of this is to launch a nuclear weapon. The Earth Federation shouldn't have been doing that. They were. Zeon stole it, used it against them. Yeah, so check out Stardust Memory if you haven't. It's pretty crazy. All right, moving on to the GP03. Okay, so this is an awesome evolution of the GP01 in terms of this keeps with the kind of the basic Gundam aesthetic. We saw where they went with the GP02, but you know that had a very specific use. Then Zeon stole it. But for the GP01, we're still getting that kind of classic Gundam look that we can see here with the head. It's even got the extra antennas here on the head that we don't see on the others. They just have the one that sticks up. This has kind of these two interesting ones right here. You know, looking at more of the mobile suit, we're just seeing more interesting features with it. Yeah, these the side skirts here, they have like two side skirts pretty much. Yeah, this one just adds more thrusters. This is very reminiscent of what we also see in later UC mobile suits. This is more like maybe advanced thruster technology. I mean, we're even seeing something like this on the G-Savior, which is pretty interesting. And then going back down to the legs, we could see where they've opted for the blue instead of the red kind of being a primary secondary, because red's really just used in the cockpit, but on the feet we got the blue. We got a sensor right in the leg, so that's pretty cool. And even looking at the legs, there's less thrusters. I don't know if these little bits here where we're seeing the black are supposed to be thrusters or just the design of it, but it seems like it is mainly utilizing the skirts for thrust and the back binders here that move around as well. Okay, so thrust is mainly from the side skirts, the binders. It is a slimmer mobile suit than the GP02, so that's probably what allows it to have what looks like not as many thrusters as like the FB, but it could be the technology is more advanced on this. Now, while some of the weapons are the same, there's some actually interesting things going on. So, like, you can open up the arm, and there's some additional things that it can do down here, like have another arm to grab things. So it's pretty cool that they've added this, and it almost seems like it's hidden, but it's in there. And I wonder how much of this would be for incorporating it into the Dendrobium. Yeah, you know, that gigantic mobile armor that the GP03 sits in. So that would be interesting to have a robot spirits version of that. Something interesting I noticed with the shoulder is it has a joint here that really helps you get all the range you could possibly want, more than probably is necessary. That's one downside with this figure in general. It has so much articulation that it's very thin that sometimes, like even with the arm right here, when you're trying to move it, you'll accidentally move this down, and it looks kind of odd, but that could be intentional there. The shield is a very interesting shield that we don't see too much in Gundam. It almost reminds me of what we're seeing in Witch from Mercury, because it has a lot of these transforming bits to it. And we even have ammo down there. It's very, very cool how we have this kind of, different shield than what we would normally see. And it has a lot of gimmicks to it, even in the Robot Spirits version. All right, well, what about a GP04? Well, apparently there was a Federation design for a GP04, but it looks like Zeon got a hold of it and created this GP04 Jabera Tetra. So this is pretty cool because it's really not Gundam-like, right? When you look at it, although there are some things that are interesting, I would say, like the feet, for instance, are more Gundam-like than we would see from like a Zaku or Zeon developed mobile suit. We also see the piping here, which is very Zeon-like. Lots of thrust here we can see with the shoulders. Looks like there's some front exhaust here. There's also, this back area for the thrust. There's also an extra part you can add on here for more thrust. And so it seems like this thing was made for high mobility, and it seems to retain some of the Gundam design elements, but they really did a good job of giving it more of that Zeon look because it's from the same blueprints. All right, so curious, out of the GPO line, which is your favorite and why? I like them all. Like, it's really hard. I like the GP01 because it's like kind of a standard RX-78-2 but modernized. I like the GP01FB because I love the high mobility aspect of it, but I like the GP03 because it's almost like a more advanced Gundam where they're able to streamline some of the thrust. It's still got a slim profile compared to the GP02. But speaking of GP02, that thing is a badass design. It's like a big, bulky Gundam, and it's got some badass thrust, even on the binders. The fact that it carries a nuke is pretty sick, so I like that too. And, with the GP04, the Jabera Tetra, there is a design out there of the Federation version of what it would have been. But I gotta say, as for just a bad guy mobile suit, this looks cool. Considering the time it came out, it looks like it was trying to call back to some like Sazabi, Sheriff's Counterattack looking stuff. It has the red, the look of the head too, almost seeing like Marasai look, and that's almost the timeline if you think of, when Zeta comes about. So that's not too far off. I mean, it looks very cool. I love how they can keep the designs up to date and modern, but kind of still keep it within the canon of development within the UC timeline. Well, anyway, Gundam Maniacs, that was a quick look at the GPO line, looking at it specifically with the Robot Spirits because of that Burr anime accuracy. Again, curious what you think is pretty cool. Have even watched the whole thing. That series is pretty sick. I think I've done a review of one episode of it, but I'll need to get to the other ones as well. Anyway, again, thanks for watching. Please check the links in the description. Join our Discord. It's a lot of fun. There's even a Patreon, so if you're interested in like a monthly movie night where we choose a Gundam movie, or if you want to listen to our exclusive new podcast coming out shortly where a group of us supporters will review a Gundam show or Gundam related show. So anyway, thanks for watching. We'll talk later.